I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Lake County Investment Advisory Committee, January 28th, 2021. Roll call, Commissioner Young.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Hamercheck.
Here.
And I'm here. And we have election of officers for the first item on our agenda.
I move that we call the election. I'd like to recommend Lorraine Fendi to function as the chair.
And I'd be honored to second that.
Okay, roll call, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamercheck,
Yes.
and I guess I'm a yes too.
There you go. You'd have had us worried if you'd have said no.
Okay, all right. Next item, approval of the minutes of the meeting of October 15th. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes. Commissioner Young, you want to second that?
I second that.
Okay. All in favor? Commissioner Young?
Yes.
I'm a yes, and you're
Although I was not a
probably
member, I was
abstain.
in presence. If I'll look to legal, it's okay to approve since I was physically there?
Yes.
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you, ma'am. And put me down as a yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, legal.
Do we have any old business? If not, new business, we have our investment review. Eileen from Meter, would you like to come forward, please?
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting year to say the least, and we are certainly very hopeful that 2020...
Can you make sure your microphone, Ron really is relying on being able to hear that.
Sorry, you're good.
I'm good now.
Excuse me, but didn't we have intentions to nominate someone for the secretary position as well?
Oh, good heavens, Ron, thank you. If you could hold for just a moment, Madam Chair?
I would like to make a motion to elect Commissioner Hamercheck as the secretary.
I second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes and thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you both.
And thanks for catching that, Commissioner Young. Okay, Eileen, you're front and center.
All right, thank you again. Certainly, yes. Like we said, 2020 was an interesting year, and we're very hopeful that 2021 will be a little more of a return to normal. So if we could advance that slide. So we kind of characterized 2020 as a year for the record books, and clearly when we look at, this graphic here, what is telling is the fact that, in reaction to the pandemic in 2020, many of the economic news initially recorded extremely sharp declines, and that much of that was then subsequently reversed as markets reopened, economies reopened, and many economic indicators started to show signs of rebounding. Now, we use the term rebounding versus recovery because until such time as we feel this virus is contained and we can check it off and put it in the history books, that at that point then we will feel that the U.S. economy has recovered, because clearly there are many sections of the economy that have not had the opportunity to return to normal economic activity. Certainly, as we know, the largest stimulus package that was passed, the $2.2 trillion, which of course was followed up with just shy of another trillion in September, provided funds to individuals, which has allowed many folks who are still unemployed, to continue.
Forgive me for interrupting, but I'm missing a lot of the verbiage here.
Yeah, can you angle your mic up? And I hate to say this, but a little extra mic discipline. Ron is on the, again, fully COVID-19 compliant, but he is attending by telephone.
Okay, certainly.
Oh, much better.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Ron, is that better? Can you hear her now?
Is it better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so now, yeah, for me, I hear like a little bit of an echo, so that's what I will keep focused on, that we need to have that. But in any event, as things do start to continue from rebounding to shifting to recovery, the stimulus dollars have certainly provided the wherewithal for many folks to continue to stay in their homes, continue to pay their bills and the like. And when we think in terms of the stimulus dollars, it's more than just the payments that have been made to individuals. It's also items like, moratoriums on foreclosures, as well as evicting folks who are renting their properties. So those actions, which have had some expiration dates and have been renewed, are now again being discussed, and with the new potential stimulus program that is under discussion now within Congress, would have a new expiration date of September. So in essence, with each of these packages that are passed, it just continues to extend the lifelines to many folks while we work through this. But clearly, we're still in a situation where we have about 10 million people who are still unemployed, who are relying upon receiving assistance to again keep things going for themselves. So if we want to flip to the next page, clearly we know, as we talked last time and previously, interest rates are been very reflective of the need to provide accommodation to the economy, and one of those key pieces of that accommodation is what the Federal Reserve is doing. So the Federal Reserve, of course, controls the overnight interest rate, the Fed funds target, and while the Federal Reserve does meet 8 times a year, four times during the year, they do issue updated forecasts. So what we have in front of us is the most recent forecast that they had issued at their December meeting. And this gives us an idea of where they feel will be the appropriate level of this overnight Fed funds rate over time at the end of each year. So as we can see, the dot plot, as it's called, shows that the participants of the rate setting committee believe it will be appropriate to keep interest rates in the short term anchored in that 0 to 0.25% range through 2023. Clearly, this what they term this ongoing public health crisis continues to weigh on economic activity, of course, employment, inflation, and continues to pose considerable risks to the economic outlook. So when we think in terms of what has to happen for rates to start to change and how will we know that will be forthcoming, the Fed has been very consistent in communicating to the marketplace that they will provide ample guidance in advance of starting to make any changes to monetary policy. So sometimes we know the media kind of gets ahead of everything because we may have one Fed member or two start to say, well, looks like things are getting a little bit better, and that then leads to speculation that the Fed can start to raise interest rates. But the consensus and the message coming out of the Fed chair is basically, no, that's not going to happen. And when we get to a position where we believe it will be appropriate, we will start to communicate that message, not on just an individual basis, but as a committee. So that certainly is something that we are very much attuned to. And so that being said, we certainly expect that the Fed will remain very patient on this, and primarily in the absence of inflationary pressures, because when we think in terms of the Fed's mandate, it's stable prices, which is inflation, and full employment as well. So if we want to flip to the next page, one of the things that, of course, could spur inflation is consumer spending. And when we look at the consumer spending numbers, and this graph gives us graphical representation of just the trend and the change relative to where things were pre-COVID. The blue line is the consumer spending number. We can see that consumer spending is still below the levels that they were prior to the crisis and all the lockdowns starting. So again, this supports, our assessment that yes, the economy is rebounding, but it's not recovered yet. When we look at the components, two components of consumer spending, goods, spending on goods, of course, this would be, folks who have bought RVs, boats, remodeled their houses, things of that nature. That has been much stronger, and that's the orange line. Relative to where it was prior to, and earlier in 2020. And certainly that was kind of the bright spot, but we can see the trend on that has started to turn back down. So clearly, the consumer, did what they had to do to adjust to a new normal, but they've not been able to pick back up the spending that is generally done on services, which is the gray line. So services, we think of the travel and leisure, hospitality, anything that involves a service. And those levels are clearly down. And I can just give you an example that kind of puts it in perspective. We work with the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, and in 2020, for the year 2020, their level of passenger activity was equivalent to only 39% of 2019 passengers passing through the airport. So from a services standpoint, as we know, the airlines are clearly, suffering from this, and, this kind of puts it in perspective that even just, a regional airport, which is a rather large airport, their traffic is, nowhere near where it was in 2019. So that being said, if we want to flip to the next slide here, the change in non-farm payrolls, this gives us an indication of what's happening in the labor market. And as one would expect, when the economies were shut down, the labor market contracted greatly, with over 20 million jobs that were lost. As economies reopened, we saw some hiring, some job creation come back, but we had seen that trend in a downward fashion. So we all of a sudden kind of woke up and we received the most recent numbers, and the U.S. economy had lost jobs. And again, many of that job loss was attributable to the leisure and hospitality, so back to the service sector, because the manufacturing side has remained very strong. But that's clearly a concern for the Fed. From the standpoint of when they think in terms of their full employment mandate, and particularly now that they have expanded that full employment to characterize it as they are looking for maximum employment. And what they mean by maximum employment is that not only would they want to see employment return, we would say, to pre-pandemic levels for high wage earners, but also for lower wage earners. And clearly the leisure and hospitality sector of the U.S. economy has a higher concentration of lower wage earners. So this will be, again, something that we will need to start to see returning back to normal, to set the stage for the Fed to start to consider raising rates, because the Fed does not want to be the party who takes action and ultimately that results in pushing what would be a rebound or the beginnings of a recovery back into a recession. So on the Treasury yield curve side, clearly rates had dropped precipitously in 2019. The gray line, and we go down to the September level, which was our last meeting. But since then, and looking at the blue line, which is December, where rates were at the end of December, we've started to see some increase in rates out longer term. And of course, that is an indication of optimism within the markets that the vaccine will be effective in containing the virus, that we will ultimately reach this herd immunity, and that life can start to return to normal. But in the same token, the expectations for inflation remain very muted. So we currently have inflation as measured by the Fed at 1.4%, and that's the core number excluding food and energy. And when we look at inflation expectations over the next 5 years, those expectations are only 2%. So one of the things that is contributing to this is the fact that, this healthcare crisis has been a global phenomenon. And so consequently, what happens not only in the U.S., but also globally affects our markets. And we can see this when we look at the 10-year global bond yields, so looking at bond yields of other countries that generally do respond to inflation by rising. And many of those global bond yields still remain below 1%. We've been fortunate our 10-year Treasury has risen to 1%. But also globally, for many of those countries, those rates remain negative. So this implies that the market expectations are that low interest rates will remain over the next several years. So again, looking at not just what's happening in the U.S. from our central bank monetary policy, looking at also the hopes of additional fiscal policy or response, but also the global effect as well here. So how does this affect the county's portfolio? If we want to fast forward to next one. Perfect. So here we are at the end of December. Securities portion of the portfolio was just under $143 million. Was of course cash, which is invested in interest-bearing overnight accounts for a total portfolio for the county of $325 million. The portfolio has a weighted average maturity of 2.35 years and is currently yielding 0.99%. So when we think in terms of the portfolio is still yielding just shy of 1%, we put that in perspective relative to where 2-year U.S. Treasury rates are, which are below 0.15%, gives us an idea of the benefit that the county continues to receive from the investment strategy where we were extending maturities to the extent we felt was prudent in advance of this all occurring. So when we look at the maturity distribution on the lower section, we can see that there's 33 million maturing within a year, and pretty much spread out across the next 4 years, and then additional funds, of course, just under 18 million maturing out in the 4 to 5 year area. And we can see, looking at the yields, that of course some of the longer, that mid-range of the maturities, the 1 to 2 out to the 3 to 4, are at higher rates than kind of the barbells pieces. And that's a reflection, again, of investments that were made prior to rates dropping. So as we look forward to this quarter, the first quarter of 2021, we have just about 5.4 million maturing. So a very small portion of the maturities within a year that we would be looking to reinvest and keeping those actively engaged. And the objective would be, based on the shape of the yield curve, as we've seen where the longer term rates have moved up, is to continue to add to the longer term maturities. And when we say longer term, it's that 3 to 4, 4 to 5 year area, because we don't believe that rates will move appreciably higher out there, and certainly will make sense, be prudent to lock in some of those rates. From a security standpoint, we've been active in picking up municipal securities as well, which has been very helpful to the diversification of the portfolio as well as the yield. So that has been something, a market opportunity that has been precedent here this past quarter, and that we would continue to take advantage of. All right, are there any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may? I'm going to take a...
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Ron, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, go right, sir. You're the one on the phone. This is more important that you get it out there. Go for it, sir.
All right. Thank you. Firstly, how do you feel that the President's actions in reference to the energy sector, his executive orders, will they have an impact on the national economy that's measurable? And will they have an impact upon our county investments as well?
That's a good question, and I know that's kind of front and center for many folks, considering the new administration came out with the executive order to halt the Keystone Pipeline, and of course they did campaign on with a focus to move more towards the green energy standpoint. So clearly, the market had already started to price that in the fourth quarter. A negative impact or outlook, we would say, to the U.S. economy, because as we know, the domestic oil and gas industry was a bright spot over the past several years for us. Allowed us to have be self-sufficient as it related to meeting our energy needs, as well as it created significant jobs. So I think, we think the fallout, I guess, from an economy standpoint, will be the loss of jobs in the energy sector. And of course, we had already started to see that in 2020, as, due to the pandemic, the use of energy, fossil fuels particularly, had dropped, and the energy sector, went through, I believe, I don't recall off the top of my head the numbers, but there were significant layoffs in the energy sector. So we would certainly expect that to, unfortunately, to continue. And so from the standpoint of, yes, the policy coming out of the administration, yes, would be a very negative potentially for the energy sector, and that will certainly have some fallout for the U.S. economy. Now, as it relates to the Lake County here specifically, my understanding is, there's no fracking going on here, so certainly, that might insulate, one would think, the county from these actions, as well as many of the large oil and gas firms are no longer headquartered in Ohio.
And just one more question, not directly related to that first question, but one I'm curious about. The housing market. Why was it going up? Why has it continued to be high, even though there's signs it's dropping off a bit now, I guess? But why has it continued to be high while the rest of the economy has, in many cases, moved in different directions?
No, and that's a good observation, and there's a couple reasons that we could identify that have accounted for the housing market, being extremely strong during these time periods. First, we're seeing a migration of populations out of some of the major cities. So think New York, San Francisco, and the like, where folks are have been working from home, and companies have indicated, well, we may not ever need you to come back in the office, so it doesn't matter where you live. And so they're seeking, housing in lower cost areas. And then the other factor too is, when we think in terms of with interest rates, and particularly mortgage rates, being so low, that has a direct correlation to the affordability of housing, which therefore brings more potential buyers into the market, and which drives up the prices. So we think about, in terms of, how do you feel about if you're purchasing, and we'll just throw out a big number, a $250,000 house, and your mortgage rate is 2.5%, versus if you're purchasing a $150,000 house and your mortgage rate is 3%. Where's your payment? Most likely your payments, you're pretty agnostic as it relates to the payments, because the interest rate is making those two choices very similar. So we have that dynamic at work as well, which is driving up those housing prices.
And is there anything else, Commissioner Young?
Ron, can you hear her?
I had it on mute there temporarily. No, that answers my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hamercheck, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Politics aside, I'll just qualify it that way. Politics aside, I would like to avail myself of your wisdom because I've been very impressed with you over the last several years. You have a great deal of depth.
Thank you.
And I think there's a connection between our low-wage earners and our small businesses.
Yes.
And I think that doesn't get enough acknowledgement, it doesn't get enough play. And if I could take us back to page 5, our labor market recovery. As a businessman, as an engineer, I'm going to say there's what I would call a ringing effect. You're going to get a major swing, but then you're going to get another swing back, not as much, a little bit of a dip. We're seeing that. Lake County is being affected by that to a lesser degree. And I think much of that has to do with we had positioned ourselves wisely across the county with diversification, strong manufacturing base. Our retail, they're taking some hits, but we didn't invest heavily there. I think the dollars and cents, again, our low-wage earners, although they're being heavily impacted, it's not impacting the economy per se, because again, by definition, low-wage earners. But I really want to get some thoughts here on small businesses. In recent weeks, months, we've been trying to assist our small businesses. And I don't want to say it's like pulling teeth, but literally we have to go to them and say, you are entitled to this program. You have the opportunity to participate in that program. Here are the things that can help you help yourself. We just recently, the mayors and city managers had a very long list of permit holders who are entitled to a $2,500 grant that have not taken that up. Now, $2,500, that's a lot of money to me. That's like, whoa. And when a business is struggling, again, there's that ripple effect because those small businesses employ people. They interact in our retail primarily, so the discretionary dollars. Is there something we could be doing? Because again, we like to say here in Lake County, we adopt best practices or we develop best practices. What can we do to be reaching our small businesses and to be making further help with our low wage earners? Because and just one other thing that's coming online, Lake County, we've got right at the head of the line for, and you can say this two different ways, renter assistance or landlord assistance. They're essentially the same thing said two different ways. But what can we do to get that message out there better? I would be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting challenge because to your point, yes, small businesses are a very important part, very important engine within the U.S. economy and within, as you said, Lake County. Statistically, we know within the U.S., small businesses employ about 50% of the workers. So absolutely, if small businesses are not aware or taking advantage of the programs that are available to them, that certainly has, as you said, that ripple effect down as it relates to them being able to remain in business and continue to earn a profit, which is what they're in business to do, and meet their livelihood, because many small businesses are in business because they have a passion and that's what they want to do. But as far as how do you make that known to small businesses, what is available to them? That's kind of a marketing question, and that's a good question. So I guess just one thing that kind of comes to my mind is maybe through the Chamber of Commerce's within the local cities and villages, what their interactions are, or I know they have periodic meetings and things like that. So certainly, broadcasting that, these programs will be discussed, or opening forums to, allow people to apply for the programs or just learn more about it. And of course, now with the pandemic, much more and more is being done remotely. So again, it's getting that message out in this new digital world. So while I'm not a Facebook user, I know there are a lot of people who are Facebook people and rely upon Facebook for information and such. So yeah, that's, I guess, kind of the only ideas I could kind of, that come to my mind that I could share with you. And yeah, now that you've piqued my interest, I would be looking for that.
That's what my hope was. Great first blush. You know, if you could put some thought to that, I
Yes.
think as an ongoing dialogue, that would be a tremendous value. I know one of the things that now Senator Serino was working, he was taking the lead on helping bring a fairly large employer here to Lake County. I think we have made a concerted effort here in Lake County, just kind of be a little micro economy within the state of Ohio. And what I envision there is being a place where businesses larger see stability,
Right.
and that stability equates to a reliable workforce, reliable infrastructure, and I'll just say it, fair taxes, because you work out deals and they come in, they do, and then they receive services
Right.
for those taxes. So there's a balance there. But again, if we've got small businesses hurting, low wage earners, I think those are indicators of an area that we need to work on. But I also see that ripple effect actually works up too.
Right.
So that stability. I would be interested in more of your thoughts. So I can see the twinkle in your eye. That's a pretty, the folks who can't see this on camera, the smile is from ear to ear. I really think you
Thank
could be
you.
a real tool in the toolbox here to help us. We're putting everything on the table, and you know, there's an old saying, there's profit in confusion. Right now, nationally, oh dear Lord, on a state level, we have our challenges, but Lake County has historically been a great participant, helping out, and I think it's time that we also start cashing in and start attracting businesses, because I really would like to see our employment be as close to full employment. What is full
Maximum.
employment? Yeah, there you
Maximum.
go. Maximum employment. Yes. Thank you, because it's normally around 3 to 4% is
Right.
considered.
Right.
So there's always that transitional. There's always the long-term unemployed.
Right. Exactly. The folks who choose not to work as well.
Excellent. And I think as far as investments go, if we invest in our people, if we invest
Right.
in our businesses, the long-term effects will definitely help out. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate your entertaining this. Thank you. And Madam
Thank you.
Chair, I appreciate your indulgence in letting me explore that.
Are there any other questions? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved, ma'am.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and for our viewing audience, we will be rolling directly, if there's no objection, into our commissioners' meeting. We could just have just a moment to do the wrap up here. Ma'am, thank you. Appreciate it, Madam Chair. Okay, Ron, you good with gearing up to roll into our next meeting? Commissioner Young?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Commissioner, I just wanted to verify that you're good with rolling into our next meeting, or did you need a break, sir?
Absolutely.
Rolling into the next meeting? Thank you, sir.
It sounds like a capital idea.
Oh, there. Considering our last meeting, well said. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order the fourth meeting of the Board of Lake County Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and may we use it in our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Okay, we have before us the meeting minutes for the regular meeting of December 29, 2020, the organizational meeting of January 7th, 2021, and the regular meeting of January 19, 2021. Do we have a motion to adopt same with waiving of the reading thereof?
So moved.
Second, discussion. None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you. Okay, this brings us to our first public comment portion. Administrator Boyd, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Indicating none, thank you, sir. And do we have anyone in the audience indicating, Becky, no, just getting a friendly wave there. Okay, there you go. Always nice to get a wave with all 5 fingers. Yes, a little inside baseball there. Okay, so that concludes our first public comment portion. And our clerk is looking at me like, oh dear Lord, here we go. All right, Madam Clerk, resolutions, please.
In the Utilities Department, resolution authorizing advertising for bids for chemicals for the Lake County Department of Utilities, bid opening February 17, 2021.
I'd like to move to adopt, but Jennifer, again, I'm having difficulty understanding what you're saying. The words, although I understand the purpose and I have a printed copy, I couldn't understand every word you were saying there.
Okay, I will try and speak a little bit louder.
That sounded perfect just then.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome.
Did you want the heading for that? I know you have the agenda in front of you. Did you want her to just reread that for your personal benefit, sir? Commissioner Young?
I move to adopt.
Oh, very good, sir. Second. Discussion?
Second. I'll second it.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution amending the sanitary sewage, solid waste, and water supply rules and regulations of the Lake County Department of Utilities.
Move to adopt.
Second, and Randy, under discussion?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. This is an annual review that we do for our rules and regulations. Some years we have significant changes, others not so much. This is a not so much year. The most significant thing is this year is we're adding a plastic pipe to approved materials for water lines. Other than that, it's mostly clarifying items and updating things more that needed updated over the last couple of years.
And for those who may be interested, these updates come from internal discussions, internal experiences, best industry practices. You, as I understand, accept input from local elected leaders, from developers, all the way through homeowners. Is that a reasonable statement, sir?
It is, yeah. We're always looking for ways to improve the way we do business and make sure that the facilities that we're installing now are going to last for many years, 50 to 100 years is a typical lifespan for these facilities we're putting in, and we're always looking for the best way to do that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Young, did you have anything you wanted to add, sir?
I have nothing to add to that discussion.
Thank you, sir. With that, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution certifying unpaid sewer and water sums and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to adopt.
Second, discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving Lake County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant February 5th, 2021, in the amount of $90,471.24.
Move to adopt.
Second, discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Air Force One Incorporated, procured through Omnia Partners on behalf of the Lake County Department of Buildings and Grounds for upgrades to the HVAC system and sanitary and electrical improvements at the Lake County Emergency Operations Center in an amount not to exceed $95,292.
Move to adopt.
Second, and under discussion, County Administrator Jason Boyd.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. This resolution and the following resolution are critical components to our county capital plan. Obviously, without saying, the EMA building is one of our most significant capital facilities that we have. Based on some work that was completed earlier, I guess it would have been in 2020, we kind of gave that facility, among others, a physical and found a number of projects, a facility that's about 30 years old that need to take place. I want to give Mr. Matus and Mr. Eiffelise credit for putting this package together to do just some much needed improvements to the existing Lake County EOC facility. This project will begin as soon as possible and set us on the right path forward for the next number of years.
And as long as we're on the subject, you know I always like to tie things to a little bit of history. So this request comes out of a review of electrical, mechanical, and plumbing at that facility. It was done well in advance of the COVID situation. Our attention to this facility is one of the things which has allowed it to function as a high-performing facility, not only in the state of Ohio, but nationally. And I believe the public has a right to know that this is a good, solid investment. This facility, again, is the facility, but it's not the facility necessarily. It makes the staff, but the staff needs the tools, and this facility is a tool that set a national standard for reviews, nuclear power plants. We set a high water mark nationally for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, for drills and certification activities. This is money well spent, I dare say, if I could get that editorial comment in there. Jason, did you want to expand on the facility?
The facility is extremely critical. The folks who work in there, we have EMA staff, we have dispatch folks that work in there. We have critical radio equipment in that facility. So these investments, while $95,000 is a large number, this is well warranted in the purview of keeping that facility up and running 24/7, 365. So thank you for those comments. And the study, before we haphazardly started doing projects, as Commissioner Hamercheck stated, we did have a firm give it a once-over, and it was evident based on the findings of that report that these improvements were needed. So that's what's in front of you this morning.
Jason?
Yes, sir.
I shouldn't speak yet. Mr. President, were you in the middle of a line of questioning?
No, sir. Your timing was perfect. Please proceed, sir.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Jason, I believe there are other initiatives to rehab that building, bring it up to speed technologically, structurally, etc. What are we going to propose this year, do you think, in totality, to bring that building up to where the experts tell us it should be?
Yeah, good question, Commissioner. In addition to this HVAC plumbing work, which is critical, kind of behind the scenes work, in 2020 we also invested in technology within some of the command rooms so we could respond not only to the COVID crisis but future emergency issues remotely. That investment has already occurred and has been tested and was actually utilized in the FEMA exercise this past September. We obviously have this project that was before you today, and we're also looking at, as we've discussed a couple weeks ago, some improvements and enhancements to the power system in the building. I think when we button these projects up in the next few months, clearly we'll keep our eyes on the target of the EOC, but I feel as if this will put us in great shape moving forward.
And if I could just add to that,
what do you estimate in totality we plan on spending? If you can't give me that estimate now, we can talk later.
Okay. Commissioner Young, if I could just ask a question of legal, considering several of the improvements that are anticipated and are in the planning stages, and some are under the execution stage, and I say executing as we're doing it, it's not the other definition. We're getting into some security discussions that I don't think are appropriate.
Yes, that is a secured facility, and those are issues that are not open for public meeting issues. Numbers, though, I don't know. How much we plan on spending would be
possible security problem.
Those numbers are coming in as the days progress, but the specifics of what those numbers are going
Well,
for.
I was asking Jason what
Oh, and I actually
an
took the,
estimate would be on those numbers. But if
And
he can't answer the question due to security reasons, then I'll forego the question.
and I thank you, and I have taken the liberty of interrupting Jason on that, and I was just seeking guidance from legal counsel. Numbers we can talk about, some of the specifics it would not be appropriate to talk about.
To back up to the numbers, what in fact is being done with regard to the upgrades?
No. I wasn't asking what would be done. I was asking what the estimate of overall cost might be.
And I believe, Jason,
I was hoping that we might have some sort of a target, some sort of a projected cost that we might be able to talk about at some point.
Yeah,
But
Commissioner.
again, we can forego this line of questioning right now. There'll be plenty of time to talk about this at a later date.
and Jason does have some, but I just wanted to make sure that we framed the discussion, that this is not an absolute and total, but he does have some numbers that he's prepared to share with you, sir. Again, I just wanted to make sure that we had the conversation framed, not only for yourself, but for our viewing audience, shall we say. Legal, you okay with that?
Yes,
We
sir.
proceed? Thank
Yeah,
you, sir. Jason?
Thanks for the discussion. Yeah, Commissioner, obviously the resolution in front of us today is $95,000 for the HVAC, electrical, and some plumbing upgrades. And we have budgeted approximately another $350,000 to $400,000 for other improvements at the EOC. So that kind of gives you that estimate. And those numbers have been budgeted in our capital improvement line item. So we have those funds available to procure and finish future projects at the facility, but we have an additional about $400,000 budgeted for improvements at the Lake County Emergency Operations Center. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And President Hamercheck, it was good of you to catch that before the conversation evolved into something that would have been improper.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your understanding. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you.
Resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Train US Incorporated, procured through Omnia Partners on behalf of the Lake County Department of Buildings and Grounds for the replacement of exhaust fans in the Lake County Jail in an amount not to exceed $144,534.
Move to adopt.
And second, Jason, I believe you have some discussion to contribute, sir?
Yeah, Commissioners, thank you once again. This is part of our capital improvement program. As you know, we're doing significant HVAC work throughout our portfolio of structures, notably here in Paynesville, including the jail, and in discussions with Superintendent Ifelis, the Sheriff's Department. We're already doing work within some of the mechanicals, and the replacement of these fans is timely. These exhaust fans are timely, as we'll have crews in there working on the equipment and have things opened up. It'll just make this project a lot easier than doing it down the road. So we moved this up our list, and it is budgeted for in our capital budget. Thank you.
And Jason, while we have you, again, this is the result of ongoing review, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. Again, it's a critical facility. We're basically trying to get the most life out of it as possible. Again, a good investment. Our facility, again, under the leadership of Sheriff Liam Bruno, continues to rate very highly in the state. No deficiencies, but again, you're only as good as a facility you have to work with. Did you want to
Yeah,
expand on that, sir?
thank you. Well said. And we have a couple facilities here in the county that are 24/7, 365. We just discussed the Emergency Operations Center, and our county jail is the same. So clearly, mechanical parts, they're gonna be used up in a quicker lifespan than a building that's 9 to 5. We found that in the jail, and we appreciate the commissioners' support the past couple years by allocating dollars to keep that facility running as we look at the long-term future of the facility. Thank you.
And one of the things that I always try to look at this is how our viewing audience would look at this. We know who Omnia Partners is, but for the benefit of those
Yeah, we go, in order to oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but we need to move on projects. The county participates in a number of procurement programs. Omnia is one. CCAO has a program where contractors are pre-vetted, and we have the ability to, we still examine their skill sets, their staff capacity, their timeline, make sure their infrastructure is what we are interested in. And this is what happened, or this is what we've used in both the resolutions before you today. So it's a procurement process that public bodies use quite often, and we've been taking advantage of that. Thank you.
Excellent. And as I always like to give credit where credit's due, my colleague Commissioner Young likes to talk about things in a staged fashion. This maintenance would fit into a staged model of always continuous improvements, holding ground, not letting the building decay. Is that a reasonable statement and assessment?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. During 08, 09, 10, clearly our budget wasn't what it was, and we had to defer some things. And, we are trying our best within our means to stay away from that path moving forward, and this is an example.
Excellent. Excellent. Commissioner Young, did you wish to share any thoughts, sir?
No, I think you covered it very well.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you.
Resolution declaring certain equipment used by the Lake County Narcotics Agency obsolete and not needed for public use, and authorizing internet auction and/or destruction of said equipment in accordance with Section 307.12 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move to adopt.
Second, and under discussion, I will say that this is a statutory requirement. The Narcotics Board has been, or the Narcotics Board, the Narcotics Agency has been stockpiling a bunch of items that are either broken, defective, obsolete, and other things that are just frankly surplus to their needs, some of which have actually been donated and had a limited use. And this is just the procedural document that allows them, the instrument, if you will. I'm looking to legal for them to be able to dispose of those items. Legal, did you wish to comment further, sir?
Commissioner, I think you've covered it very well. Anytime county property is what we call obsolete, or there's overstock, it is appropriate to go through this statute in order to make room.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the use of a credit card held by the Lake County Sheriff's Office in accordance with Section 301.27 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move to adopt.
Second, and under discussion, I would like to expand on this just a little bit. Our Sheriff's Office, they do a great deal of business where there is a need for a point of pay at that very moment. Purchase orders become a bit cumbersome. I will say that our sheriff and his finance staff have worked very diligently to establish a set of internal controls that are substantial, significant, and I believe will keep us error-free or as close to it as possible. I will say that in support of Mike Matus, our budget finance director, who is pretty much adamantly opposed to having credit cards out there, and that's a good thing, because if you look across the state of Ohio, there are so many audit reviews where credit cards are almost constantly being referred to because of abuses, errors, just the number of problems. And there are times when you could have somebody at Mr. Matus's pay grade chasing 31 cents. And that's not a good use of time and effort, but it is required. I will say that Sheriff Liam Bruno and his team have put together a number of requirements that will protect and guard against that. So I guess I just want to make sure that it's abundantly clear that although this is a departure from our long-standing policy of not doing this, the Sheriff's Department has demonstrated a high degree of internal controls, and I just wanted to make that part of the record. And if there's nobody else wanting to add to that, Commissioner Young, did you want to add to that at all, sir?
No, not at this point.
Very good. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you.
Resolution declaring certain Lake County property, motor vehicles, which titles are attached, surplus or obsolete and not needed for the use for which it was acquired, and authorizing the donation of said property to Grand River Village Police Department and Painesville Township Fire Department K-9 Arson Unit in accordance with Section 307.12D of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move to adopt.
Second, and under discussion, not sure if our administrator wants to add to it, but I will just lay some groundwork while he's walking up here. This is again another example of Lake County being a good partner and working with our villages and townships and helping out when and where we can. Jason, did you want to go into some more detail?
That's pretty good. Yeah, just the correspondence.
Slower then, or faster.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We received correspondence a couple weeks back from Chief Deputy Sherwood, and we've done this in the past where we have vehicles that are no longer in service for the Sheriff's Office. Clearly, we're a community of one here in Lake County, and Grand River and Painesville Township had some vehicles that they needed replaced, and this was a good partnership to assist some of our community partners in the first responder world, and we think it's a good project. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And just looking at legal, again, this is all completely within the due bounds of permitted transfer of assets from one political subdivision to another.
Yes, Commissioner, it's all contained in Title III. I was just making notation, community of one. I like that.
There you go. Teamwork, beautiful thing. Thank you, sir. Okay, if there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $1,545,704.50.
Move to adopt.
Second, discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,659,258.08.
Move to adopt.
Second, discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations through various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to adopt.
Second, discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you. This brings us to our departmental reports portion of our meeting. Utilities. Randy?
No report today, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. And while I'm looking at your smiling face, County Engineer Jim Gills.
I'm just waiting for executive session. I have no report.
Gotcha. All good. So, well, how's Madison Avenue? That's always been a hot topic.
Well, we're receiving questions and so forth. It's on track. I am trying to light a fire under ODOT for a quick approval afterwards. They seem to think that we can wait 2-3 weeks before they get around to it. So we're in a process of giving the big shove.
No, that the expediting is very important, and appreciate your experience and your tenacity. One question out there, Rumina Road Bridge.
Yes.
You almost universally accepted, great project. A lot of people are asking, so the structural steel, is that raw rust are we looking at? Is that just a red paint on that thing? What are we looking at there?
No, that's a special steel. It's called Core 10. It gets covered with a light rust coating, which then protects it from any further rusting in the weather and so forth. So that's on purpose, and it costs about 10-15% more money to get that special steel.
So that oxidation, some would call it a patina.
Correct. We usually do that on structures that it makes it very difficult to paint and maintain it otherwise. Hanging up 125 feet above the ground is not a lot of fun and pretty expensive for a painter because you have to get steeplejacks.
Mm-hmm. And then the other question, so we've got the paint, which is actually an oxidation layer that prevents it so it'll hold up against our salts and other chemicals that we're using.
Just does.
Excellent, excellent. There you go. See, a little did you know? So excellent. Thank you. Moving on to our county administrator, Jason Boyd.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple brief updates. First off, Finance Director Matus is targeting next week to have the budgets in front of you for 2021, so we'll be on the lookout for those. I know he and his support staff are working through the final details and proofs, so that should be forthcoming for next week's meeting, I believe. Secondly, this will be our third week using this platform to kind of give an update on the COVID-19 vaccine process, which is going really well. The relationship with Lake Health, the Lake County EMA, and the Lake County Health District as the chief official, if you will. As I noted a week ago, I believe there's a partnership with Lake Health, the three entities I just noted, to begin the vaccination for those 80 and over, and we are following the governor's directive of 5-year increments. This week was 75 and over, I believe. The caveat that I can't stress enough is, we're only getting hundreds of doses a week when we have thousands and thousands of seniors. So we are doing collectively the best we can to get the doses out. Just a couple numbers here. Through yesterday, Lake Health, the health district, vaccinated 1,132 individuals, primarily over the age of 80. They have been very successful in getting extra doses out of the vials, which we've heard about, and it's yielding true for the partnership. I was on a call this morning. Clearly, the health district and Lake Health are getting their data sometimes in the 8th or 9th inning as far as next week's vaccine. There's been discussion in Columbus with schools being on that list. Paraphrasing some things I've heard, I'm not sure if Lake County will be on that list for next week, and we really don't have the official number what next week looks like. There's essentially daily calls with the vaccine planning team. We'll have another one tomorrow to begin to program additional senior clinics when we get the amount of doses verified. The system that we've put forth to date is working really well, where folks can pre-register on the health district website, where they'll put their name, number, and so on. And then they will be notified via the reverse 911, a call, a text, an email, or a landline opportunity through our call center that you are eligible to schedule an appointment. But I can't stress enough, we have thousands of those folks and only hundreds of appointments. So just, hang in there. We understand the frustration, but we can only act as fast as we get the doses and schedule accordingly. We can stand up our platform and our scheduling platforms relatively quickly based on the number of doses that we receive. So all in all, not as fast as anyone would like, but we're extremely satisfied with the partnership, the logistics, the flow. Lake Health's been great at Lake West. There's been courtesy valet parking. Just it's working really well thus far. So glad to note that. Also, there was a smaller pod point of dispensing that was established last Saturday in Mentor. Went extremely well from all indications. Director Busher at the EMA. That was held at a facility in Mentor. Proof of concept worked really well with first responders. So the day when we receive significant numbers of doses, we feel very confident we'll be able to stand up existing other facilities in Lake County to do mass vaccination. So I'll continue to use this weekly a platform to give you a brief on where we stand as I know it with the vaccination, but can't stress enough the good work of Ron Graham, Dan Lark, Bert, his team, and then Dino and the folks at Lake Health. So that's
excellent. No, that's a great summary. Just some people always ask, hey, give me some meat on the bone. What else is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that we worked through in this last week, independent physician groups.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hot topic. One of the things that needed to be emphasized. Some people hear, okay, you've moved on from 1A to the 1B groups. There's not enough vaccines to go around. We had to re-emphasize that there is a national shortage, that the major pharmaceutical companies, in this case Pfizer, Moderna, sometimes we're getting, sometimes even less than 24 hours notice of, hey, we're shipping, and then it shows up. Other times there are longer lead times. But we did work through that because one of the emphasis that needed to be made to these independent physician groups, if something comes in earmarked 1B, it can only be used for 1B. And as we emphasized, we're not going to be wasting anything. So as you alluded to earlier, sometimes we actually get more doses out of a vial because they do overfill, just to make sure that there's the minimum there. again, good resource management. It's active, it's real, and rather than going in the garbage, it's going in somebody's arm. But we worked through that with Lake Health, great partner in this. It was a hot topic at the board meeting. Ron Graham has been an excellent partner in this, and again, working closely with the governor's office to make sure that we work through these logistical kerfuffles. But one of the things that I think the public should probably be aware of, much to my surprise, and I think others, is syringes and needles. Somebody somewhere along the line said we need this number of vaccines. They didn't account for the number of syringes and needles. And the other issue is we're finding that since we can get more doses out of our vials that are coming in, we're getting enough materials to do what the minimum is, but not enough to do the maximum. I am proud to say that our EMA director, Joe Busher, is on top of this from a logistics and acquisitions side. We've got our Lake Health's involved and Ron Graham's involved. It's all about supply chain management. We got out ahead of this with PPEs, and once we've identified a problem, we're working on that too, so that, again, vaccines will not be held back because of a shortage of syringes and needles. We're working in a very effective way to address that. Jason, did you want to expand on any of that?
No, that's well said, and then I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the fire chiefs. They've been integral in some of these off-site pods that are going to, Chief Powers and Chief Searles and all the gentlemen who've been planning this for a number of months. So I just wanted to denote that in addition to Lake Health and the Health District and the EMA.
Excellent, well said. And again, that goes back to building public confidence that these points of dispensing, pods, they are effective, efficient, and they are fully scalable based on the number of doses that we have to be able to distribute. Yeah. So again, we're doing everything we can to pre-register people, to notify people, and to be able to effectively get them in and out.
Right.
And the second dose, for those who may be concerned, those are accounted for.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that. Is that a reasonable statement?
Yeah, that's a true statement, and the folks that we've been doing are getting their appointment card, if you will, upon the completion of their first dose. They're getting a date and a card of when their second dose will be.
And one of the other frequently asked questions, if you will, if you get a Pfizer shot first, you're going to get a Pfizer shot second. If you've got a Moderna, you're going to get a Moderna. That level of tracking is in place. There's not going to be a mix and match. So people who are concerned about that, you need to obviously be aware of what you're doing. You are the final arbiter of what goes into your body.
Correct.
But beyond that, the system is designed to be able to track that. So that's how we know who to be reaching out to for the invite to come back and schedule that second dose. Anything else you want to add?
Not to the vaccine.
Very good. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, and we've been so, and deservedly so, immersed in the COVID-19. I just wanted to mention, and Commissioner Hammercheck, Commissioner Young, some staff members, our leadership throughout the state on various boards and commissions. I know Commissioner Young's a NOACA member. Matter of fact, Commissioner Hammercheck, I believe you were just named first vice president of NOACA. As Engineer Gills knows, NOACA is a significant funder and long-term planning agency that those board seats are critical for Lake County to receive, get in line, maybe get in front of the line if we could, for federal highway dollars, transportation dollars. I think a lot of times, we talk about, passing invoices and doing waterline projects and JFS, but there's a lot of committees and boards, albeit virtually now, that the commissioners represent. David Radacci, Randy Roethlisberger, over the past couple of years have been in leadership roles in their respective, disciplines. Commissioner Hammercheck was just named board of directors to the County Commissioners Association. So I just, Commissioner, I appreciate you always throwing attaboys to staff. I think the commissioners, they need a ditto. There's a lot of extra work that you guys put forth. So just want to thank the commissioners in allowing the Randys and David Radacci's, Mark Eiffelis from Buildings and Grounds, former director of his agency. I want the public to know that we kind of, we take it serious, and whatever we can do to bring best management, additional dollars, policy back to Lake County, we do. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to echo back to you the fact that you, Jason Boyd, we've got Randy Roethlisberger, who's actively involved in the affiliate bodies, and David Radacci. Lake County right now is the best represented county in the state of Ohio. If you look at per capita representation, we are number one. And that's a testimony. And I'm going to give a shout out to Jim Gills. You have been a great mentor in sharing your concerns regarding NOACA, and you've helped me in my efforts to study and better understand how the systems work. And you were a major player in helping me take Lake County for the first time in the 51-year history of NOACA. We stopped being a donor county where more money flowed out than flowed in. That looks like we are very much going to be on the recipient side of things for the foreseeable future. We've laid a solid groundwork. And to Jason's point, with this high level of engagement by our elected leaders and our support staff, we are very well positioned for this region to be a recipient, greater attention and more resources, be it dollars, be it legislative assistance, to be able to be effective, efficient, and continue to deliver high quality goods and services to our public. So, Jason, thank you. Do you have more?
Yeah, and I also, and I'm remiss for our fine clerk and the assistant clerk and their participation in the County Clerks Association. I know, like my association, it's a good sounding board for what are we doing now that we could do better. But I think it's on the other end. I think a lot of our calls are, how are you guys doing X? Because people look to us as a leader in what we do. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the clerk and the assistant clerk and their participation with their trade group as well. So thank you very much.
Agreed, and I think legal would say if it's not memorialized, it didn't happen, and if it wasn't for our clerks, nothing gets memorialized. So.
And she would let us know that.
Commissioner Young, did you wish to add, sir?
Well, I'd just like to say that the work that Jason has done on these issues has been phenomenal, professional, and he does it in such a way that people walk away with a smile on their face, even though their workload may have doubled. I'm not sure how he does all that, but we're glad to have him, and keep up the good work, Jason.
Well said, sir, and he does it quite cheerfully, I might add. All right, let's see. Jason covered the finance. Madam Clerk.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that our next commissioners meeting is going to be on Thursday, February 4th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am. And moving on to legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this moves us to our old business portion of the meeting. Do we have any old business to come before the board? None being heard. Moving on to new business. Do we have any new business to come before the board? Again, none being heard. Thank you. Moving on to our second public comment. Administrator Boyd, do we have any submittals via email? We do not. Indicating none. Thank you, sir. And do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board? No indication of same. Thank you all. Okay, we do have a request for executive session. No business will be conducted after the executive session. I'm sorry, was that a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes stated, sir? And the purpose actually is real estate acquisition.
I move we adjourn to executive session.
There you go. I'm going to work on my auctioneer voice. We'll go fast. And I will second that. Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yeah.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today.